ago, I received a call from Amparo. I was truly pleased to be invited to this conference and take part in this workshop. I thought it would be so interesting to share my experiences throughout my career and discuss some ideas about how to build a professional network. I won't speak about what we do, but instead how we do things in our professional work. I am convinced that the most valuable thing and the thing that brought me the most satisfaction has been the opportunity my career has given me to connect with other people and share interests, knowledge, and lessons learned with those around me. To establish contacts, to meet people, to answer emails has never been a professional strategy. It was never my idea to get an immediate benefit. Exchanging visit cards does not make sense if there's no real interest in exchanging ideas. Looking back, I realized my interest in network comes from a profound conviction that working on behalf of our cultural heritage has not so much to do with objects, monuments, or sites, but with people. Throughout my career, I have held different positions and had different levels of responsibility. In every job I have held, taking the opportunity to build human relationships has always been rewarding and fruitful. Back in the 80s, when I was very young, very enthusiastic, and just out of school, I began to work in the documentation department at BIBAM. I planned a trip to New York and asked the US Embassy for help planning a series of museum visits. We didn't have emails and direct contact with people in those times, and I just called the embassy, and they were so helpful to me, and it was the first lesson I had. They organized a very nice trip to many museums, and invited me to visit their registration department. And I was really impressed because I was taken seriously. I was really very young, a total novice. People and everybody was willing to answer my questions and to discuss these topics with me. And I learned an important lesson, that I wasn't alone. There was a community out there interested in the same things I was. I could become part of an international community, a community that had the same problems, doubts, and fascinations that I did. I learned that we don't need to be shy. People who love their jobs will always be thrilled to offer us the time to explain what they do and how they do it. But I also learned that it's important to pay it forward. When we are asked to have those conversations, we also need to pay attention. We need to be sure we are dedicating our time to any professional, to students, to young people too. A few years later, I became director of the National Center for Conservation and Restoration in Chile. For the first time, I was responsible for the people who worked with me. For the 22 years I was in charge of the center, the development and growth of this team was my top priority. And for this growth to be successful, I wanted everyone on the team had to have the possibility to be exposed to new ideas, to be pushed to analyze their own ideas, and to learn and to teach. With this thinking in mind, we developed many initiatives. With Gael de Guichen from ECO, we launched a preventive conservation program for the whole country. And I was very active in encouraging the staff to take part in internship, courses, congresses, and meetings in every place possible. And we applied to any grant available. At the turn of the millennium, we moved into new headquarters. And for the first time, we were able to start an internship program. We wanted to ensure the program was well planned and fruitful. And for this reason, we decided to host an international meeting to discuss how to plan a successful internship. We again teamed with ECOM, and I remember how great this meeting was and how we arrived at conclusions that were so clear and pragmatic. There's a publication which is still available at ECOM's place, who explained the conclusions we held at that meeting. In 3 days, we were able to find some very interesting ideas on how to build a good internship. We talked about interns, about tutors, and about the importance of the institution supporting this kind of programs. And it was a great result for the center. We organized our internship program. It's still working, and many people came to the facilities and worked for some time with us. And the interesting thing for me is that I didn't manage on that time to get funding for the interns. And so we launched the program, and everybody had to find their own funds. And it worked. It was for me like a miracle, because I was really unhappy because I didn't was able to find funds from the center, and people they in some way are able to find their funds and organize themselves. As I mentioned before, in the year 2000, the center moved into our new headquarters. And the restoration of this cloister was financed with state funds. Its initial equipment with resources from a private foundation in Chile. At the same time, we were working with a Japanese team directed by Professor Sawada in Easter Island, and many of the required analyses needed to be sent to Japan because we didn't have the necessary technical equipment to analyze it ourselves. And Professor Sawada encouraged us to apply for funding from the Japanese government. Here you can see we are signing the agreement with the Japanese ambassador and with our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the coming of this equipment after the government of Japan approved. Again, it was a strong professional network that helped us make a necessary leap. The equipment arrived and people started working with it. But what I like most about this project is that immediately after we received this equipment, I managed to get a new fund to send our people to many, many different places in the world to learn how to work with this equipment. And they went to the CCI and to Liverpool and to Sevilla, and we invited people to our headquarters to work with us, and we started a real network with institutions and with people in the institutions to help us to really learn to use this equipment. Again, it was not really a project about equipment. It was a project about people working and learning together. And I have another example from 2008. There was an arson attack on one of the most beloved religious relics in Chile, the Virgen del Carmen from Santiago Cathedral. And the CNCR was asked to restore it. As always, these situations generate questions about methodology and the technical expertise of the team. Given the complexity of the task, we knew we needed to think about a strategy for tackling this challenge. We needed a support network. In fact, we needed various support networks. And we created different teams within our group: a theoretical team, a team that headed intervention, and the board that was responsible for approving the budgets and serving as the official channel for transmitting the information. This board was very important. Some of them came from the church, others were historians, and some of them were part of the brotherhood who owned the image. And in addition, we began a consultation process with our contacts. This wouldn't have been possible if we hadn't fostered these connections for over many years. It was truly incredible. We received quick responses, including technical advice from the IPA, which had a very similar case just before. And together with the team at CNCR, Erika Rabelo from IRPA joined us, as well as Ricardo Villalba from Ecuador. The restoration was successful and really exciting. And our clients were pleased and happy to get the image restored. With these examples in mind, I want to call attention to the fact that when you establish a professional network, the advantages are twofold. It leads to individual enrichment, of course, but from that also comes institutional development. It's really a virtuous cycle, beginning with warmth and esteem between colleagues. In the year 2010, I left the CNCR and became National Director of the Library, Archives and Museums Directorate, the main organization responsible for national heritage in Chile. It's a big national organization and a complicated one, with great responsibilities and, as always, a small budget. I quickly understood that this job was very different from the positions I had before. I no longer had knowledge and control of what the whole group was doing. I needed to delegate tasks and work with third parties. I needed to work and network not only with my colleagues, but also with stakeholders, with people who take decisions, and with politicians in order to meet my goals. I realized that networking was really the essence of leadership. There are so many more examples of networking playing a huge part in my career, but there's not enough time to share them all. I'd just like to underscore that in organizations, both big and small, the challenge is the same. It's so important to get to know other people who have similar interests as you and a similar vision of their work. It's crucial to build a tight-knit team of people who are talented and trustworthy. I'd like to leave you with a final conclusion, that building a network both within your own country and internationally is an absolute must. Building international connections has huge benefits, both for each individual and for all of us. But these connections are only fruitful if they lead to real interest in exchanging experiences, sharing our knowledge, and if we truly make an effort to foster these connections in a way that makes them sustainable. And I believe that this must be a relationship between people. There's no publication or social media network can replace them. To learn with and from others spurs a real change in the way we understand our profession. We really need to be convinced that we are looking for its effective, sincere collaboration and that we want to be part of the global conversation and the global search for knowledge. We know that there are great people out there doing great things, but we don't always have the will to make the necessary connections to work together. Thank you all.
Thank you, Magdalena. Wonderful networking relationship with people about that.